Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show. My name is Matt Mulholland. I'm here with Tristan Miles. Neck Tattoo is making her a drink. And this is the show that you can call in and, or not call in. We don't accept calls really, but you can comment in, get your questions answered live. We talk about bullshit in the insurance world, in this industry, in dealing with claims. You can ask us any question you want. We'll probably answer it. I really don't care what the question is. I wear a large sock. It's between 9 and 11. I don't know why they have such a big range for socks. I guess they stretch, something along those lines, but that's the size sock that I wear. If you have other questions about me, that's cool too. We are going to talk about some weird stuff today. You're a supplementer.
Yes.
You used to be a PA.
Still am.
Okay. You used to act as a PA.
Yes.
Okay. Still am. Schmuck. All right. I don't know enough, so we're going to find out some more, but I have to click another button. If I had a mouse that worked, Daniel, then this would work out just great. Here we go. We're not attorneys. Well, cool. So on this show, we talk about bullshit in the insurance world on both sides. And there is always a lot of questions when it comes to where the line is on UPPA or UPA or UPA. How do you pronounce it?
UPPA.
UPPA? That's how I pronounce it too.
Yeah.
UPPA, the Unlicensed Practice of Public Adjusting. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also UPL, the Unlicensed Practice of Law, which I'm not an attorney. If you hear me say anything that might sound like we're talking about legal stuff, Tristan's not an attorney either. You just misheard us. There's definitely no legal advice being given whatsoever on this show. If you think that we might be giving legal advice, it's just because we're pretending. And none of this is really good, and you probably should not take any of what we say as gospel. Tristan is the best at what she does. Well, that's good news. Thank you, Gage. Appreciate it. Let's find out what she does. So you're a PA.
Yes.
You were acting as a PA.
Yes.
With a PA firm.
Yes.
Taking on claims.
Yep.
Working them on behalf of policyholders. And then you got so sick and tired of it. And you left.
Yep.
Like, that's really how I was just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, that's it was kind of like that, but it was more of just we were kind of sitting at a standstill, and it just wasn't, we weren't getting to the end goal here. And I don't know if it was because when you're answering the phone, you're saying, "Hi, my name is," and I work with public adjusting firm. It just didn't seem to work, especially with the residential claims. I do think that there is a time and a place for, public adjusters, attorneys, appraisers, supplementers. Mm-hmm. But when I was working just strictly residential files, I thought that being a public adjuster wasn't as efficient.
Okay. I get that. That's Neck Tattoo over there with his head cut off in half. Mm-hmm. If he simply moved a little bit closer this way, that wouldn't be a problem.
We just met today.
You might have to bump Tristan in a little bit. We're going to have to get a little cozy. It's a smaller studio. So I can tell you this, as a public adjusting firm that handled volume residential claims, when we switched to large loss, some of our PAs went to go work for roofing contractors as supplementers as well. And they also said that they felt like they were more successful on the supplementing side. Yeah. We're surprised the hell out of me. Why do you think that is?
Because we're not arguing about the policy at that point. We're not arguing if coverage is actually owed. It's more about can we do the work for what's listed, or if it's a denial or repair, can we do the work for what has been allotted already, or does the material exist? Do codes allow us to do the repairs the way it is? So we're not looking at the policy. We're staying far away from the policy. We're just addressing what has already been granted.
Do you find that you end up hitting a snag and you need to make a policy argument at times?
Absolutely. And that's kind of why I keep close relationships with other people in the industry And I have them do those conversations. I talk to our policyholders and tell them, kind of we've reached an impasse and this is the most efficient way to get your claim covered.
Okay. So if there is a policy argument ahead, you get the public adjuster involved at that point, but more often than not, you don't have to. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like there is a concerted effort to put public adjusters out of business?
No.
You don't feel that way?
No, I don't think so.
So what makes just acting as a supplementer then more effective, you think? Just because you're not having to make a policy argument, but
you're arguing by facts at that point, not by, looking at the policy and saying, well, homeowner has ordinance and law coverage, therefore this is owed. It's more about, do the installation specs require this? Do the codes support this? And if it comes to it where the homeowner doesn't have that type of coverage, that's not my responsibility. That's now just something that we have to put in as a change order, and it's just owed by the homeowner. It's just turning in the direction of it.
So it's almost turning towards we don't care if it's retail or insurance related type model. Same process one way or the other. Doesn't matter so much.
Well, not the way it should be. I mean, whether or not it's an insurance claim, I don't think dictates the process of the repair and the validity of the repair. I mean, what dictates that is, like you said, the availability, repairability, and code applicable to that repair. And if you can or cannot actually do it, the insurance is just who's paying for it. And if it's not covered by policy, it's got to be covered by homeowner, because you can't not do it properly just because they don't want to pay for it. If I had 2 cents.
Do you have 2 cents?
Not anymore. I gave it all to you earlier.
You're so broke. It's crazy. It's crazy. Javier says maybe indirectly, probably about whether or not they're trying to put PAs out of business. That was our impression when we moved over into large loss in Georgia anyway. With the PAs that we had that went to go work for roof supplement companies or not roofing companies to become a supplementer. A lot of the same arguments were being made because we were arguing the line items as a public adjuster, mostly because on the claims that we wrote the estimate, we were going to have to argue those line items. But if I, as a public adjuster, was able to get a contractor to give me an actual bid, then it changed everything, and I only had to make a policy argument. I liked that better. So even if you were doing what you're doing, if you're submitting an estimate and backing up your own estimate as a contractor, which I think is a great thing, then even for a public adjuster that ends up having to get involved later on, it's a much easier argument, because then we can just say, well, this is what the policy owes, the amount that's reasonably and necessarily incurred, and they have justified that this is reasonable and necessary. What's the problem?
And the way I kind of structure things is I keep those relationships with these public adjusters. And so if the time ever comes, they should have everything they need to hit the ground running. And it should be a slam dunk. So the public adjusters, when they're receiving these files, it's not a questionable file. It's not bullshit. It's legitimate damage with legitimate items and supporting documentation.
Okay. Well, that sounds nice. How many PAs you work with? Want to add another one?
There's a couple.
There's a few.
Do you think there's like an underlying connotation with public adjusters in the eyes of the carriers that a public adjuster is going to try to find any excuse to apply any type of coverage and try to exacerbate the claim as a whole, versus a contractor who's probably just trying to get his portion done? Because if you're a roofing contractor, all you really care about is a roof. You don't care if there's interior damage if you're not handling that part of it, or side, or whatever else could be outside of it. But a PA may go in there and look at it. Okay, what else can I get? What else can I get? And maybe the reason PAs have a little more pushback is because they have that reputation, or I don't even know if that's the right word, a preconceived notion, that it's a PA, so they're going to just try to blow it out. Let me just try to shut this down now. Versus a supplement company with a roofing contractor that's just, they're just trying to get the roof, well, I'm not going to do.
Well, let's be fair. We've definitely met with supplement companies over the years that definitely try to blow things out of the water too. And asking, I get those kind of people in my classes sometimes, and we get a lot of questions on this show about, how you can push things a little bit further. How can you get this additional amount of money, regardless of whether the work changes? It generally doesn't, but they're trying to find ways to get more money involved.
And I would say that when I'm looking at a claim, I will look at it as a whole. So is the roof damaged, the siding damaged, the windows damaged? I'll account for everything as a whole, but I will always come down to, is what I'm going to send out reasonable? So if at all things you can call me, I would be reasonable. So I'm not going to send out, again, the bullshit.
Yeah, you don't want to be bullshit.
I don't want to, because at some point there's going to be an audit. At some point there's going to be attention drawn towards you, and you just want to make sure that the reputation that you've built with these carriers, the reputations you've built with, other people in the industry, other contractors, other PAs, at least they know that it's reasonable and actually valid.
Okay. Well, if you can justify that kind of thing, then it makes sense. Is there a line where it becomes inappropriate? And where is that line? Sometimes it's very hard to find that. If you've been able to find it, I'd love to know how that works out.
I would say the red flags that I get is however that contractor is acting in their own space. So are they discounting the file when it shouldn't be, when it's an insurance claim? That's a red flag. Is it
discounted when it's an insurance claim instead of the other way around?
It gets discounted a lot of times.
Do they add more if it's an insurance claim is usually what happens.
What do you mean?
A lot of times retail work, they're giving a cash bid, they'll probably discount it for a cash bid, but if they were going to do it for insurance, they say, well, no, we're going to get
still typically higher than the insurance world.
It usually depends on the scenario, but if I do see some red flags, that's a red flag that I see. If you had any sort of discount on there, that's a red flag. If we get to a point and let's say we're in a matching state, I know that we're in a matching state, but I won't give them that actual statute. I'll say, I understand that as a contractor, we have certain requirements that we have to meet per the state. And we kind of will say, it smells like matching, but it's not matching. That's what I always say.
Right. Yeah, when I fart in the room with my kids, I ask them, do you smell popcorn? Kind of the same thing.
Probably not popcorn, though.
It's probably not popcorn, but it makes them go,
it might have used to be. But it used to be popcorn.
Yeah, you put the evidence in front of them and you say that it might be this. And then if we ever get to a point where, okay, it might be a policy issue, well, then that's another thing. I'm not going to discuss that with you. I will discuss proper installation. I will discuss codes. I will discuss if that shingle's still available, but I am not going to tell you that it's required per policy.
John, is your daughter watching right now?
Yeah.
She's staring at you through that glass, actually. Yeah, she's super happy about that. Daniel Rabowski, who I could actually pull on here, one of the partners of NCI, listen to this. Well, I worked for a supplement company briefly long ago. There's a lot of dots in between briefly and long ago. So for every dot, is that a year? Is that how that works? 7 years.
Wants to make sure
7 years.
Briefly.
But it's very short amount of time over a span of 14 years. I don't see the issue. If a contractor has the knowledge and can argue it based on the damage, not policy language, the idea that it may put PA firms out of business is crazy. Do PAs think that? Do they think supplement companies are going to put them out of business? Contractors are experts in their field. PAs are experts in policy, so the two don't necessarily overlap. Do you think PAs think that supplement companies will put them out of business?
Do I?
I'm definitely asking you.
I don't think so. At least I hope not, because that's not the intention. It's more so creating the most efficient process for these homeowners, because a lot of the times this is their largest asset that they'll ever have. It's not compared to, a $1 million, flat roof project. This is making sure that we're getting them the quickest result as possible. And sometimes with public adjusters, you have to be a little bit more thorough and make sure that you're getting the homeowner every single dollar that they're actually owed versus what they actually need to get the roof done as quickly as possible, or what's actually damaged.
All right. So what if there is, I'm going to give you some devil's advocate and just go a little bit down that path without beating you up. If I get to that line and I step over it, just slap me. It's fine.
Okay.
I have a lot of cushion, so I won't even feel it.
Can I hit with this hand?
Not that hand. I don't have that much cushion. That is a massive ring. Man, all right,
My husband got that for me.
good. It's on the right finger for that. Anyway, shit, I forgot what I was going to say.
Good.
You're good. Good, she says. There's certain coverages that it makes sense for a roofer to be talking about. The contractors are allowed to discuss their bid.
Yep.
No question. Most statutes in some states or actually say that and specify that people are allowed to talk about or discuss their bid with the carrier. But if you're getting into coverages such as additional living expenses or something along those lines, if a contractor is involved, does the policyholder know that they have the ability to get more coverages? Do you even say anything to them about saying, we don't go down that path? You might have additional coverages that we're not going to deal with. We're just going to deal with the roof portion.
Yeah.
How do you bring that kind of a thing up?
So I guess the best way to do it is we address what we can, what we actually are experts in. So if we're experts in roofing, siding, windows, gutters, that's what we're going to address. Now, as having the experience of a PA, I understand that there might be more than one claim to a claim. And that's where I call up, maybe it's coastal claims, maybe it's
Wait a minute, if there's more than one claim to a claim, then that should be a different claim, right?
Depends on the
With
day of the
another
claim.
deductible.
It could be, depending on the scenario. So if it has multiple parts of the loss, or if it is, additional living expenses, whatever it might
Facets to the claim.
that's going to go to a public adjuster, and we can facilitate that conversation.
There's facets.
Facets.
It's a complex
Sure.
claim.
It's
It
a
needs
complex
OMP.
issue.
There's
It's got
multiple
layers.
facets.
It's like an ogre.
Yeah.
Ogres
feel
are like
like-
onions.
I feel like if I
What's
were to have an
reasonable
opinion,
to a carrier? Just a roof or just siding?
Depends on the carrier.
Who gets to determine if it's reasonable, necessary? There's a point in code where it becomes unreasonable, but it's a gray area. There's no hard line, but I could take code and I can turn any damaged roof into a full roof replacement, full siding replacement, full house wrap. I could turn it into a large project simply by following the code to the T. So where do you think the reasonable line is?
So I would say, I ran into this situation where the roof is definitely owed. The roof has a portion of it that needed to be replaced. And because it's in a matching state, it should be replaced fully. The shingle's been discontinued. We can't do the repair that way. But also part of this loss, there was a piece of sidewall where the sidewall met the roof. There was a piece of siding that had been, detached.
Mhm.
It was still there. It's still usable. Now, could I say that was caused by the loss? Absolutely. But because I'm already asking for the entire roof based on the ITEL report, I know that I can probably detach and reset that piece of siding. I know that it's not actually damaged. If I were sitting in a PA seat, I probably could get everything covered because that's been damaged by the storm. But reasonably, because I'm already asking for the full roof, I can detach and reset and do some repairs to that. And I know that our crews can as well.
So what if you detach or reset hardy plank or you attempt to and then it breaks? Do you?
So another thing that I'll do in some situations is if I know that we're going to possibly cross the line of if it could be reasonable or not reasonable, I would say we did run into hardy and we couldn't detach and reset it. We'll put it as a paid when incurred item and we'll say pending plausible repair.
Sure.
Pending if this can be done. And so the insurance carrier and, using the PA words.
I'm going to pause you for a second because, technically paid when incurred is a policy thing.
Yes. So we don't actually say paid when incurred.
Okay. And
No,
Exactament
nope.
has that as an option in
Yep.
there. So it might not really be a policy thing. I was hoping you'd have an argument back on it.
No, I don't really have
Could be.
again, we're trying to be
I just
reasonable.
give myself the backwards argument anyway. It's an Exactament. Exactament is not a policy software, although you can apply it as policy because it's got carrier profiles.
But we'll
Do you use
Right.
Contractor or carrier profile?
I don't actually know.
confirm nor deny.
I can't really say that. I think that's
If a
I think that's my trade secrets.
If a not bad. If a contractor is writing an estimate Exactament, should they use the contractor profile or the carrier profile?
We use carrier profile.
I
And I'm
use
not
carrier
100%
profile.
sure why. Somebody that was like kind of helping us set up when we first started out, for some reason said use carrier profile, and, kind of walked through the setup of it. But I mean, I kind of got to the point where Xactimate pricing got so far off of fair market value, like I didn't even like it. I don't like it to this day. I hate Xactimate. I mean, it's a great way to break it down and to kind of get your numbers right as far as measurements and things like that and components. I mean, if you want to get a bill of materials, it's great. But
it's use of a software. I doubt use of a software constitutes going into or applying policy language in some way. Javier uses carrier. Anthony thinks we're giving him great info. Little does he know. This is poor guy.
Now, why do you hate Xactimate?
Why do I hate it?
I guess why do you guys hate Xactimate?
Because it's not accurate.
I would prefer to have a bid from a legitimate contractor that's actually performing the work. If I'm writing a bid in Xactimate, the whole purpose of Xactimate originally, well, not the company, but the purpose of using Xactimate in the industry originally was to be able to provide some kind of a basis for an estimate if a contractor isn't already involved. If a contractor is involved, they were submitting an estimate. If not, then the adjuster had this program that they could use to set an estimate, possibly set a reserve for the file using that, possibly. That would allow you to be able to set an ACV value even if there isn't a contractor involved in an event where you weren't going to use a contractor. Total house fire, you could set the ACV value using this program. If they weren't going to rebuild, they were just going to purchase somewhere else. You'd have to have some kind of a program to do this kind of thing. There's all kinds of reasons why Xactimate started being there. But then at some point, and I anticipate it's because of the contingency contracts becoming so big, at some point it became a standard practice for the carrier to write their own Xactimate. They didn't have to. They didn't used to always do that. I don't like Xactimate because it means that someone is getting involved when they're writing an estimate. If an actual contractor that was doing a retail bid generally got involved, they would not normally be using Xactimate.
Xactimate in the hands of Xactimate in the hands of a contractor will induce gouging. Because they're going to get curious. They're going to be sitting there at night playing on their Xactimate, looking for line items.
How do I get a new line?
How do I get this? Now, granted, a lot of times you throw in stuff because you're trying to compensate for things you know they're not going to pay for. If they would just pay for the actual replacement, there would be no need for fluff, as they call it. So that's what kind of started spooling this whole, what else can I find? What else can I throw in? What else can I get bought? And if a contractor just submitted his, estimate for, X number of dollars per square plus, whatever little extras they want, 50-year shingle or value metal or whatever little add-ons maybe go in there, it'd be cut and dry. It'd be clean. But when you give them the Xactimate and you say, well, send me your estimate, but I need it in this format, you're going to make that guy sit there and anticipate a partial denial or kickback on his estimate. And he's going to say, well, what else can I get? What else can I get? And maybe if they don't want to pay for starter and flashing, maybe I can get this over here. Maybe I can get, high profile ridge. And, you start digging around and
I would almost disagree. And I guess you guys can string me up later, but
I'm just saying I'm the contractor that was in there digging it. I saw it. It happened to me, when you're fighting a certain claim, a certain carrier, this is going to be shit. Let me just push it as far as I can get. And maybe I can raise the where we settle a little higher. Just trying to get to my number, but go ahead.
I mean, I would say, we didn't create the rules of insurance. So why are we fighting against the rules? So I guess it's just the path of least resistance and the most efficient way to get from A to B. And these homeowners need us to get from A to B as quickly as possible. Again, this is their largest asset that they mostly own. They can't be having a blue tarp. They can't be having water coming in their house. So if this is what the insurance carrier needs to get this approved, if they need a supplement estimate, if they need to see bolded line items, they need to see F9 notes, I'm going to do it because I know what gets gets everything done.
Mhm.
I know how to play the rules, and it's kind of a chess game about how you do it. But if you play within the rules, there's less conflict.
Okay, so if a contractor wrote an estimate and
That was a very wise statement.
if a contractor wrote his estimate in whatever program he was using,
Yep.
do you modify the pricing and Xactimate to match his? Because you're just basically you're going to take his estimate and format it in insurance language, right?
No, no, we just write the Xactimate estimates from the beginning.
Yeah, they're writing their own estimate.
Right.
It's not a contingency
So
model,
We're
right?
looking at what is damaged. So
Mhm.
everyone has, I've built out an inspection report, and as long as everyone follows that inspection report, then I can reasonably write an estimate for everything that is actually damaged or what is actually needed to get to them a full replacement. If that means full siding, full windows, full roof, whatever it might be, it's going to be on there. And now if there's an issue that we might not know, if we don't know if we can replace the siding, if we don't know it's still made, we'll put on there in a note, we don't know that this is still made, so this is going to, and we don't say it,
Pending verification or something.
this sets the reserve for them. So they know that this is a kitchen sink estimate. And I don't intend to bill off of it, but this is strictly to show the difference and to show that what we expect to come up.
Do you write estimates for customers prior to a contractor being on site or prior to it being involved?
Prior to
They're
an
the
adjuster or a contractor, because we're contractor.
Oh, you are the contractor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Did you not
was
read the
missing.
title of
I
today's
did.
show?
It said supplementers.
Jesus, Nick.
My bad. So okay, so you're as a contractor, you're committing yourself to the price line of Xactimate.
Yes.
Only what is damaged along with corresponding photos and documentation and F9 notes. Do you know why they call them F9 notes?
Do they press F9 when they do it?
I think they do.
That was a just guess, but I like that.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
I spent all
Why
my
else would you
time
call
looking
anything
for
an F9
random
anything?
line items. I
like
didn't
Christina.
learn F9s.
They aren't playing the game. Daniel says they're playing a game of once the carrier's paid for it, they can't take it away, which is how PA firms maintain
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
the lost details.
I was weighing it.
But
Kinda
if
like my
you
exact
do
investments,
know,
just
they
weighing it.
freak if they see the full price. What if you're a general contractor? What does the other prices matter? Let me ask you, if you were a contractor, and I'm not saying that you do this because I have no idea. If you were a contractor that was writing a contingency contract, meaning that you'll do the work for the amount that the insurance company approves, do you think that gives a contractor the right to negotiate and settle with an insurance carrier?
No, that touches that gray area, and I don't touch that gray area. That's usually, I'll usually tell, and I've had this scenario come up where the adjuster's like, I'll give you $16,000. And we have to ask, okay, if our estimate's at $18,000, which line items are you not approving so that we know what the homeowner has to be billed for? Because this is what the cost is.
See, that's how you do this correctly. All right. I'm glad we had this topic. I was nervous
Because
for
I
you.
disagree
I
with
was nervous for me.
I was nervous for you so much because it's a topic that needed to be had, but we needed a willing participant. You guys are doing it the right way. You're not negotiating,
Nope.
which is part of the UPA issue. And for most states, not all states that license public adjusters, negotiation is part of the license of public adjuster.
I think my
Louisiana
dad
is one of those that
Grizzly
doesn't.
Adams.
Dude is Grizzly Adams.
It's my dad.
Oh,
you know,
you talking about me?
I was this close.
I don't think he's talking about him.
I would, no,
No, it's definitely not you.
no. I was this close to bringing my mat ensemble.
Oh, yeah, no, he's got a fake beard and a hat. It's
I'm
a
upset
scary
now.
thing. You didn't bring it at all.
No,
You're in Florida.
I know.
I could have combed it on camera.
No, you can't. I think it was so cheap.
I
It would
could've
fall apart.
brushed it.
It'd be a pile of cat
Could've
hair.
been really
man.
weird. We could have made a really weird thing. So, in the event that a supplement company was negotiating on behalf of the policyholder and accepting a settlement type offer, do you think that that's crossing the line for them then?
Yes, I think it does. And now, can we find a solution within those price ranges? Probably, but I still need that question to be answered. What line items are we
Oh,
sacrificing
sure.
for us to meet that required to meet your $16,000 offer?
Sacrifice.
If a contractor
I like the
agrees
use of
to
that
do it for
word.
the price the carrier puts out there, is that a violation?
I'm sorry, what? I missed
If
that.
a contractor just agrees to do it for the amount the carrier, if the carrier beats them down anything less than their original estimate, is that kind of like a negotiation? Okay, fine. Even if they just roll over and say, okay, fine, I'll do it for that. Is that part of negotiation? A
So
weak
if
negotiation?
they say that I'm only going to allow $16,000, okay, well, then at that point, the homeowner can choose to take that $16,000, but there's still probably going to be a change order. So your insurance carrier allowed for $16,000. We said it was $18,000. There's $2,000 in, maybe it's ice and water shield, maybe it's additional flashing. Then it has to become a homeowner decision. What would you like to do here?
I love coming out here.
Oh my God.
And then that would be a $2,000 difference plus deductible.
And that's
Which
not
may-
our
which may-
responsibility.
May even double their deductible.
All right.
But then that goes into, okay, now is the carrier actually doing the policyholder right by trying to beat down our contractor's line? Now is the contractor going to be chasing his margin by cutting corners? Are they putting that homeowner in a position, and you probably can't answer this because as a contractor also, I mean, what kind of other stipulations behind the scenes might that set them up for? Maybe they're not going to get the adequate amount of ice and water. Maybe they're not going to go back with the Valley metal that was originally on there because they need to kind of make that up somewhere.
I don't think that it really is a negotiation. If you don't have everything that we tell you need, then you don't get a warranty for it. So maybe you choose a lesser grade shingle. Maybe that's your sacrifice. But at the end of the day, if you want a warranty, you have to have all those line items.
Mhm.
Now, there's other options, other price margins. You always hear that you have your good, better, best estimate. I mean, there's stuff that you can do to help get there. But at the end of the day, all those items are still required.
Side note on your good, better, best with the new lifetime shingles out everywhere. Where's your good, better, best?
I would like to say I know
Three
a lot.
tab.
They don't have
Arc
good,
and
better, best
designer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a question from our audience. Do you know who Christina Hill is?
Yeah, she's based out of Lincoln, Home Shield Roofing.
Lincoln,
Home Shield
Nebraska.
Exteriors. Yes, she's Lincoln, Nebraska.
Do you guys like draw out your words and say Nebraska or something like that? That was terrible. Never mind. I withdraw
that's
the
exactly
question.
how I say it.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Oh,
What happens when an insurance company's pricing is lower per line item?
That's
Line items aren't missing, just not matching your price. So example, using Intel Shingles program or discontinued DSM. Is that supposed to be
So
Discontinued
DMI.
Materials Inc., DMI?
DMI, right? Yeah, DMI. I think.
DSM sounds like a word mix with a BDSM.
That's that
I don't
new
know.
drug
It's
on the
where you
street. That
take
new
shingles
synthetic
in
drug,
a
isn't it?
dungeon, and we don't need to talk about it.
So I think what she's kind of referring to is, in the Midwestern states, we'll see like Safeco and Liberty Mutual are notorious for this. They have pre-negotiated shingle pricing with ITEL, but ITEL is the middleman. And then you have the material
Yeah.
warehouse that actually has the pricing. So they've negotiated pricing for shingles, but you have to go through ITEL to get that price in the location of that shingle. It's super inconvenient.
You have
Has
15 days
anybody
to do
out there,
Huh?
You
real
have
quick,
15 days to do it, or the pricing disappears as well.
Yes.
has anybody out there ever actually tried to obtain those materials? I like to see that.
Yes. So
You have to pay a deposit just to see if they have it in inventory.
what we did,
Non-refundable.
we actually did try to go out and get those shingles,
Mhm.
and the problem is that they're not updating it as regular as they should. So you're seeing them using pricing for those shingles 3 months ago,
Mhm.
and that's not reasonable. So I did what you're not supposed to do, and it worked. We sent our
$10?
material bids, our invoices, and
Who wrote this?
who wrote what?
I didn't write that. It's coming from us. Did you write that?
My phone is sitting in there in the office getting charged. Maybe my kid went and wrote it.
I bet it's Remington
Remington.
Could
or Frank.
But anyway, yeah, preparing
It
for the
is
hurricane class tomorrow. Be
Remington.
ready.
It's Remington.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I totally interrupted everything that you were saying.
So you did what you're not supposed to do, and it worked.
Yeah, it did work. And it still doesn't make it extremely profitable. It's not what you would get in an exact estimate because, of course, it's Symbility with Safeco and Liberty Mutual. But it worked, and we were able to do the work. Homeowner has a new roof. Everything's great.
I have heard Symbility, when used correctly, is actually very good pricing.
How do you know if you're using it correctly?
I
I
don't-
need to do a lot of training.
Yeah, apparently
Yeah.
it's in depth. There's multiple lines for single action, and yeah, I don't know who's going to actually. Maybe that's their tactic to get something so overly complicated that contractor can't sit there and just figure it out like we do with Xactimate, and just scroll through line items.
Sure.
But yeah, and then we got Daniel Rabowski over here, who's just godfather of all the estimating. Just I wish we could
Godfather.
pan the camera right now. Just
Do you think that a supplement company can recommend that someone go to appraisal?
That's kind of a tricky question. I don't really have to experience that all the time because half the time the homeowner is already asking us if they can go to appraisal, if they can go to a PA.
Homeowners ask you directly if they can go to a PA or appraisal?
Yeah,
They know what a
it's-
PA is?
I'm surprised myself, but half the time we're seeing that people are asking if they can go. So
You are
they're
kidding.
doing their
Yeah.
research now.
you
too.
are in a very
Does anybody else
educated
have that
market.
experience? I've never heard of that.
That's in Kansas. I've had that happen.
Everybody wants a lawyer. They
had that
just go
happen in
straight
North
to-
Lawyer
Carolina.
right here, huh?
Yeah.
North
So
Carolina?
yep.
Wow.
That's weird. No one knows what a PA is in North Carolina.
Hey, my best customer is an educated one.
It was appraisal, but still.
Yeah, but you
I
added
did.
PA.
I
to
did
it.
add
It
that.
wasn't
But
just me. I mean,
But no, they
Yes.
do know. Like, and sometimes you have people say, "Well, I just want to go straight to an attorney." If that's what you want, I will. I'll talk to you about
Yeah.
a couple of people. Here's a couple options that I would recommend. These are people I would trust with my own house.
Here's all my stuff. My
And-
photos,
and-
documents.
Yeah, and we know how to prepare that for them.
yeah.
Again, that's having that experience as a PA, knowing how they would like to have their documentation.
How's the Florida laws working, Matt, with the referrals and things like that?
Yeah,
I know it's really finicky.
There are
like,
there are a lot of states that are a little bit strict on certain things. Florida's getting stricter on what a contractor can and cannot do. Some of the laws that came out were challenged as being unconstitutional. As far as I understand it, some of that law was deemed to be unconstitutional, or at least it's not being enforced yet while they're still working it out. I don't know how the outcome was of that, but there are definitely states that limit a little bit more what a non-public adjuster can do, a contractor can do in certain situations. Most states, not most states, but some states write in. This is actually something that, as a president of GAPIA, we were negotiating House Bill 254 in Georgia, and I was able to get them to add in this language in that state because it came from Florida and it was also in Texas. But we added into the statute that contractor has the right to discuss their bid with the carrier, just to codify the fact that they have the right to do that. Because otherwise, they'll even try to say that discussing your own estimate with them is acting as a PA possibly. But that's the thing. When I say that, what the audience that are contractors is hearing is that they can negotiate a contingency contract. And what I actually said was discuss your bid, which means you have to have a bid.
Yeah, contingency contracts are going to be the death of the industry.
Yeah. It's an SVG model. If you guys like Anthony Delmedico, you can keep
Yeah.
making contingency
I mean,
contracts.
you can scrounge up a lot of work that way, but you're going to always be chasing the dollar at the end of the day, trying to
North
get your number
Carolina
in there.
PAs matter.
Now,
Leslie
I've got a
Barber.
question.
Wesley.
Is a
On the
PA in
reverse
North
of
I
that.
love Wesley.
Carolina. Okay.
Him and old Robert Towton.
So, as a supplementer, if you don't have a contingency agreement, let's say we get the homeowner from 3 shingles to full roof replacement, and they decide, I'm going to go shopping.
Mhm.
Should they still have to have, if they have that contingency agreement, should they still use us?
So when we're talking about a contingency agreement, I might be talking about something different than what you are.
Okay.
So the continuing agreement that I'm saying is if we get the roof approved, we'll do the work for the amount the insurance company approves.
Got it.
you're thinking if we get the approval, we'll get the work for this amount.
Yep.
And no one adds the this amount portion of that. So that's the
Okay.
benefit of what you're doing. The what makes this work, I think, is the fact that you're actually submitting a legitimate bid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the contingency is that if you get it approved, that you'll do the work. So I don't think there's any real problem with that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how contract law works,
Yeah.
but
I
the
mean,
contingency model where there isn't a set price, as far as I understand it, isn't really a full or real contract.
It's not.
It's enforceable, at least for most states.
we call it handshake on paper, but it's yeah, no, if you have a final number that you give your customer, whether it's saying, look, I'm going to get the insurance to get as close to this or whatever as possible. If I don't get this amount, you have the option to get out. That's just a real life bid scenario. That's me saying, look, I'm going to do it for $25,000. If Joe Blow down the street says he'll do it for $18,000, you want to go with him, go ahead. You know,
How do you feel about a carrier getting a competitive bid?
Competitive bid. I guess it kind of depends on what the case is. If they're using it to undercut somebody, or if
just the only time.
yeah,
That's the
like
only time they
usually
use
in
it.
those situations, they want the job more, and so they're going to cut corners. And I guess my motto is that I'm always going to be on the right side of things. I'm always going to tell you what's needed on your roof, what is going to get you warranty, and what's going to last you the longest. And not every roofer is going to do that. So if that's their reputation, that's their reputation. But I can't control that. I can't control what they're going to do. But what I can do is I can gain the trust to make sure that I'm their roofer that they want to go with at the end of the day.
Okay. I mean, the obvious, let me,
For the record, I've never been in a bidding scenario where I was a low one and lost.
Yeah.
Or I've always won not being the low bid by standing behind my number and justifying why.
I heard that about you.
All
You know, it's all about the
Two
way that
times.
you use the tools that you have. I don't know where I was going to say. Thanks, John.
I'm sorry.
Damn it.
I love coming here. That's it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. From a policy standpoint, the idea that an insurance carrier is going to get a competitive bid, they have the right to do that. They have the right to determine if the price that is given to them is reasonable. They have the option to do that. When they get a competitive bid, in a lot of state statutes, there is some language that usually falls under auto or policies or claims arising out of auto policies or something along those lines. But it'll say that an insurance company has a right to get, or the bid has to come from a bona fide repair shop, is what it'll say under auto. And they're talking about like a body shop. When they say bona fide, they mean a contractor, a body shop that has the ability to actually take on the work. They're licensed to do it. They have the insurance to do it, and they actually perform those duties on a regular basis. That's what it means to be a bona fide contractor, a bona fide repair shop. So if you were going to get a competitive bid from someone that is sent out by the carrier, if they don't have the ability to actually do the work in that region, they don't have a license in that region. I've had many competitive bids that come through from contractors on claims involving asbestos, and they didn't have any asbestos certifications or licensing, so they couldn't do any of the abatement, and they were still writing an estimate for it because the carrier asked them to. I would highly recommend, if there is a competitive bid, to start asking the questions, could they even be hired for this? Are they even legally able to?
And I would even say when there is another competitive bid, asking that homeowner, hey, can I look at that with you? I just want to make sure at the end of the day, you're protected, that you get what you want. And sometimes even doing that and saying, okay, well, they didn't include your ice and water shield. They didn't include the right felt. So you might not qualify for this, or they gave you a lesser grade shingle. So you can't invest into your home and get that insurance the premium discount because you didn't go with that architectural or the impact resistant shingle. So just educating the homeowner usually can help turn that back over and make them trust you a little bit more.
Have you ever talked to a homeowner about a competitive bid being given? Javier keeps pointing out who who's usually being sent out. And for like mitigation practices and stuff, they'll send out ServPro or Service Master, competitive bid. They'll give someone that's on their preferred vendor network. Do you ever talk to a homeowner about how that kind of thing works?
Like with ServPro and like Belfour or something like that, or
Belfour is a good example. Yeah.
And like the only time you really see that is if the home is a total loss. And in that time, usually that's not a time for a contractor. Usually that's time, I mean, not until after the insurance agreement has actually been settled. So let's say if a tornado goes through, that's probably something I can't help with.
Belfour, maybe, although I've had them come out to give competitive bids on much less than those kind of losses.
So here's a scenario that we would get a lot in our area was
down, and they do it indirect.
There are certain contractors that are known that all they really do is like ladder assistant inspection services for carriers. They're labeled as a roofing contractor or whatever, but they don't ever do any work that way. Their entire revenue stream is coming from services to carriers. So when a carrier needs a competitive bid, they go to that guy. But that guy really doesn't.
Are they going to do the work?
It. No. Well,
so then why are
they'll
they the
weasel
professionals?
Yeah, if we back out and say no, we're not going to do it because that number's retarded, and somehow we just hit a roadblock there, then yeah, maybe they'll get to do that 1 or 10 a year.
And that would be my question to them: is are you actually going to do the work? Are you licensed to do that type of work? Then why are you bidding it out?
Yeah. Well,
because you don't know what the price is. You don't know what the costs are.
Yeah, well, they're also trying to just keep their main customer happy because that's who's feeding them all these inspections and ladder system, yada yada. But really, they're not out there. They don't have high volume material contracts with suppliers. They don't have all their guys lined up. They're a service, not a contractor. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, they'll low bid the hell out of it and not care because. They probably won't get the job, but what they're doing is they're appeasing their employer. And that, I don't know. I mean, so I guess what all it goes back to is, okay, would my homeowner have found and chosen that contractor to do this if none of this happened? Is that somebody that they would have sought out? Because in policies, and I know I can't interpret these things, but it does say you're entitled to your contractor of choice.
It doesn't say that. Okay. It implies that you definitely have that ability, but the policies don't actually say that.
Okay, but are they or are they not entitled to their contractor of choice?
Yes, they are.
So would that have been a choice? Is all I'm saying.
Unless it's written into the policies.
So most policies have a right to repair built into them. So the carrier would have the option within 30 days of coverage decision to determine if they're going to make the repairs themselves or pay for the repair or replacement. And they have that option. Mm-hmm. If they choose the repair portion of it, then that's a right to repair. They have that option. You don't get to choose who the contractor is anymore. So the policy actually removes that ability. You only get to choose that if they choose to pay for the repair or replacement. And the carrier does accept liability in those moments, though, if they choose that option to make the repairs themselves, because then they are hiring the contractor.
Okay.
So Christina brought this up. Managed repair programs, I think more of the insurance world is going that way. Yep. And that's true, but this has been a cyclical issue this isn't the first time this has come around. And the liability concern that's attached to that is a big deal. So a lot of the managed repair that's coming in now is a little bit different, though. They're giving it as an option. And they have the option to use the managed repair. And if they accept the option to do so, then they get a benefit. Either they have a lesser deductible, or they have more coverage for something that would otherwise be limited, or they are not going to have coverage at all unless they accept the managed repair, and then suddenly they have coverage. So the policy gives them a benefit for them to accept the option to use their managed repair program. And if they take that option instead of it being required, then they're the ones technically, according to the policies, that is hiring the contractor. And if they're the ones hiring the contractor, then the carrier might not be liable for any work that's performed in a non-workmanlike manner.
Well, and I guess I'm not opposed to repairs. Let me start off with that. But
some good money on it.
But it has to meet certain requirements. Do we know if this can be repaired? Is it pliable? Is it still made? Can we repair the felt properly? Is this going to be a watertight seal like it was before the damage was happened, or are we going to cause more damage to it? So if any of those don't fit, then we have to go for full replacement. Or let's say if we can do the repair, then we do the repair. Or let's say if a tree fell on part of the home and it's not connected to any part of the other roofs, then you can probably just do that part. I'm not opposed to it. It's just making sure that we are reasonable and keeping that relationship in mind with those insurance carriers. And we're fighting, and it's not necessarily fighting, it's working within the confines of the rules that they made.
No, you want to go with the flow if you can. I often tell people, and I agree with you on this. I often tell people, why are you fighting that? You pick your battles. That's not a battle to take, whatever it might be.
If it's repairable, it's repairable.
Repairability is one of those things where, I mean, if we're being honest, if you applied the code the way it is, most roofs are not repairable. The vast majority. And in a different way, every roof is repairable because a repair includes the replacement of a certain amount of shingles. You're just not replacing all of them. But if you replace all but one, if you have a damaged shingle, you replace all the way up to the ridge, an upside down triangle, and down the other side, but you're not replacing some on the corners. It's still a repair.
And there's an issue, so, like if we replaced a roof a month ago and then a tornado came in and it's wind damage, do we need to do a full replacement? Do we need to do a repair, or will it self-seal itself? So those are some things that we have to look at.
Sometimes newer roofs are even harder to repair because they're bound so damn tight. So they're even harder to repair than the ones that are 10 years old. Yeah.
But you don't jump off and just say full replacement automatically. No. You just say, there's a lot of unknowns right here that I have to consider when I'm looking at a repair. And
are you saying that you need like a good quality inspection to really validate materials and manipulability?
Do you want to know how many photos I ask for on a regular basis?
I just ask for photos.
Oh, Wesley.
I ask for like a minimum of 100.
Just give me something. Now,
this is a really solid point from Wesley Barber. It's important to get an agreed scope before a competitive bid is engaged by the carriers. That is absolutely great information. If they are going to send someone out to give a competitive bid, you need to know that the scope of work, the scope of damages, scope of repairs, scope of whatever is agreed to beforehand, so that the competitive bid knows, or that contractor knows what they're putting a bid on. If you don't have a scope of repairs that's agreed to yet, there's no point in having a competitive bid.
So you're talking scope, not price, materials, measurements, the actual scope of work.
I don't know what scope means. Do you know what scope means? Well, next week's show is going to be about this word.
What is the scope?
Scope of repairs, scope of damages, scope of coverages, scope of mouthwash. What is it that we're talking about when we say scope?
A 10x magnification scope.
Saying in certain states, scope is a very contested word, especially in appraisal language, and it's being challenged in almost every state. Wow. If your state hasn't made a determination yet, I promise you there is a case about it right now. Well, it's happening everywhere. It's mostly State Farm trying to take differences of scope out of appraisal.
If I knew Wesley,
4 states that way now.
If I knew Wesley, and I do know Wesley, he's probably talking about material measurements.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. But I'm glad he said the word scope, because it allowed me to say something about
to segue into next week's show.
Because we're going to have. Do you know who?
What, Wesley's company?
No. My guest next week is Steve Badger. Do you know who Steve Badger is?
Yes, I do.
I bet you do.
I'm trying to stay as low under the radar as possible, which is why I'm always on the good side.
Always on the good side?
Yeah.
I think everybody believes that about themselves. Roof, fascia, soffit, siding, windows, interior work, paint or drywall until you hit limit. Javier is typing like crazy today.
Gouging.
Scope, whatever's in Discussino.
Javier, you're jumping languages within the same
repair. Javier is typing like crazy. Photos are free. Minimum 100 photos per job. I don't like giving a certain number per job. Every job is different.
I would say generally, so with my scope sheet that I usually have people do, if they're taking every single picture on it, it's somewhere around 100. So I put a limit on it so that way they know that they're not done until
you force them into it.
Yeah,
So-
they know that they have to do it, but if they get the muscle memory, so right off the first couple jobs that they do, they know that they
Mhm.
have to have this whole sheet.
Right.
By the time that they've done their fifth, sixth job, they're doing all of them without even thinking.
That's cool.
What
Does
you
Kevin
should
work
do
with
is
you
all
guys?
your guys that are out there doing inspections, teach them how to write exactament. Because
Can a contractor legally negotiate on pricing
No.
or only scope?
I stick straight to scope.
None of
Scope
us are
work.
lawyers.
I would say
The
pricing.
scope is a good place to go. But I mean, if you're discussing your bid, you can discuss your price. You just can't negotiate it necessarily. You can discuss your price.
That is true, but
Yeah.
it's still at some point, what items are we sacrificing to meet that price?
Because that's the only way that the price will change is if the scope changes.
Contractors shouldn't be sacrificing.
Company
any-
Cam is perfect for this. Company Cam is a cool program.
It is.
Clint is an attorney. We have an attorney.
Clint.
To me, managed repair programs just mean the carrier is allowed to make reasonable repairs instead of indemnifying the insured. If the policyholder fights it, the claim is a reasonableness standard under negligence instead of contractual law.
That is such a lawyer thing to say.
I know. Clint, I'm going to have to ask
Clint,
you to
back to our previous
elaborate.
statement. Some
What I'm
roofs
going
are
to do,
repairable.
buddy, is send you a link. I think I'd rather pull you on and have you
Ooh.
discuss that. If you can jump on
I don't
that
know.
link I just posted, I'll pull you onto the show. You can explain what the hell you just
This
said.
show can't handle two
I have
beautiful
no
baldies.
Huh?
I don't know if the show can handle two
You're
beautiful
still beautiful,
baldies.
John. Don't worry.
I said two. I included myself.
What am I?
You're
Not
a glorious ginger. You're the glorious ginger.
What your dad called me?
Grizzly Adams.
Grizzly Adams.
Grizzly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ginger
Big
Adams. Ginger Adams over here.
fur. Big fur. Now,
Yeah, I mean,
discussing
like
scope-
managed repair. Okay, I'll say this real quick. Managed repair, I think, could be reasonable if they're willing to accept failure of that repair if it fails. And then again, who then determines whether or not it fails? Does the homeowner have to get a third party contractor involved to inspect the work of the first contractor? And if that's a cost incurred, is that actually incurred into it with the adjustment?
I hope Clinton gets on. Some of
fine.
what he said there is boggling me. A reasonable repair is indemnification,
Yeah, if it's reasonable. I mean, that's a big if.
or can
it's
be.
not.
Indemnification in itself is really just an ACV term anyway. You're indemnifying by covering the cost. RCV value or RCV benefits actually are more than indemnification anyway. It's betterment. So this. I'm not going to go down that path. We don't need to get into that at minute 57 of the show.
Oh, shit.
They get an engine. Okay, I don't know where it's coming from. At this point, I'm lost.
He's saying to get an engineer to probably validate whether or not it's that's a costly evaluation to get an engineer out there.
For a repair?
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, and I would ask the carrier is, if this repair fails, who accepts the liability at the end of the day?
But do you have to wait for it to fail? Because really, honestly, the carrier, if they're accepting responsibility for the repair, do they want to wait for it to fail? Because the way they're going to know that it failed is by more damage happening. And now you got interior and insulation, all kinds of drywall paint. This whole scope now the scope blows up. Do they want to know that
Right.
then, or do they want to have somebody third party non-biased go out and inspect
But
it?
I would say, what carrier is going to say yes to that?
None of them, because they don't want to.
Again, if they're not going to accept the liability, why would you expect me to? So why would I do that?
If they accepted it, we wouldn't have this show or this institute.
And that's the
or-
thing. is That's the question that you have to ask is,
Yeah.
if
It's a good question.
who accepts the liability if this fails? Now, another thing we go back to, is that shingle available? Is this a proper repair method? Can we still bring it back to the way it was before the loss? If those don't fit,
Right.
then we're not accepting the liability on that.
Right. But in a managed repair scenario where someone goes out there and does a repair, who validates whether or not that repair was actually done right?
And then at that point, we've reached an impasse. And then I call up anybody.
Anybody.
Not me.
Send out a group text, all
Yeah.
contacts. Hey,
Who wants it?
Yeah.
Someone yells dibs.
I have a claim that I was I was consulting with a PA in Florida where they did exactly that. The managed repair roofer was sent out, and the contractor that was already hired by the policyholder that got that PA involved. PA said that contractor was going to act as a third party to determine what the build quality from the preferred vendor that was being sent out. And they said that in advance, to give them fair warning. We're going to accept the optional managed repair, but we're going to verify that everything is done in a workmanlike manner by sending out this third party to determine if everything is done correctly. The carrier didn't respond with we're not going to accept that. They didn't respond at all. So when the roofer came out and they did their job, the contractor that the carrier or the policyholder had originally hired or got involved, went out and evaluated, and it was done wrong. So they brought that up to the carrier, and then the roof was replaced a second time. And then they inspected a second time, and it was found to be wrong in certain ways. I brought that up to the carrier, and it was replaced as a whole a third time, which was found to be wrong. So they are on their fourth re-roof after this one claim. Who do you think is paying for it? Is it the insurance company, or is it the preferred vendor that's a part of that contract?
I don't know.
I would
So
assume it'd be
you won't
segregated.
find me on a preferred
I
vendor
would
list.
bet it's that preferred vendor, and they're just.
I'll work for
I guess
no
my
name.
question is, if you're replacing the roof 4 times, at that point, are they also accepting to replace all the decking? Because you have a lot of holes in that decking now too.
That's
No.
a great white paper. I cannot wait for this to write.
There's not a lot of research on that. If you could actually validate that with pull tests before and after the roof to say there was a certain amount of strength that the roof had with shingles on it beforehand, now we've replaced it, and now the strength isn't there, then that would give you
Well,
something. to
my
talk
question would be is, so how many nails do you need to have in one shingle?
about. Minimum of 4.
Okay, so if you have
Really
4,
technically 8.
how many shingles come in a bundle? How many are in a square? How many times are you replacing that shingle into that decking that many times?
Sure.
You're talking about like 1,000 holes a square at that point.
I don't know about
I've
1,000.
pre-done the math. I'll find
there's
I'll find it for you.
28
Yeah.
to 32 shingles per square, depending on the manufacturer. If each
No,
one of those is
no. 20 to 32 per bundle,
a
3
bundle
per square.
times 3. You're right. So 60 times
We
4,
can round it.
240
Now you're replacing it 4
Times
times.
6. Well, times
Times 4
6
then.
nails.
is almost 1,000.
Still.
Okay.
Now you have that
So-
many holes in the decking.
know
Is
why we
that
just did
decking
math
compromised?
wrong.
I know.
What's
All-
wrong with
with
this?
beers.
I told you almost 1,000. I said
Yeah, you
about.
Did.
But-
You did.
I told
Okay,
you, I did
so-
the math.
All right. So fair enough.
Sheathing stamps, real quick while we're on this topic, sheathing stamps are rated on deflection based on span, right?
Uh-huh.
So now when you start popping all them holes in, even on a single roof, re-roof, how much more deflection do you have, and what would that change that sheathing's rating for span?
That could be another test that you do. I can tell you this. The International Code Council, the ones that make the IRC and the IBC, they believe that nail holes left in materials violates the integrity of the material. It's written in
Violates the
their
shit out of it.
commentary, which you can't see unless you purchase the premium version of the code books.
Look, someone did the math for us.
Who that is?
384 was not a number we came up with, so they might be doing it based off of
And there's
30 shingles.
No way we were
per square.
wrong on our
and
math.
if we're doing 6 nails per shingle, which is required in some areas, then it would be a hell of a lot more. So
Well, even if you
how
cut the
many
other-
roofs would you think is viable for typical plywood?
Well, what we would need to do
3?
3.
How'd you
no,
come up with that?
That was a pre thing that I've already thought about.
I think we need to set up a span with a fresh sheet of plywood, deflect it, get a baseline, install a full roof system, rip it off, deflect it again, rip it off, deflect. I bet it grows exponentially.
I mean, how many times have you replaced the roofs out here
We're
already?
about to install the 6th one on one of those boards that's got OSB, and the 5th one on the board that
I would
has
like to
plywood.
see a light on that and see all those holes.
The holes
Looks like
are
a starry
really big.
night.
I got some big holes.
Wallered out.
Yeah, it's wallered out.
So
holes.
how long is that decking going to be? use.
I haven't done enough testing beforehand to know the baseline, so I don't have any good science that can come out of that. It's got some beautiful holes.
What if
Now you got homework.
She's got some great holes.
what if you threw an age
But when we
degradation
redeck it
too?
for the first time, do what?
What if you threw an age degradation on plywood too? You know, because you're talking about standard piece of plywood tested when it's fresh.
Does plywood? I
It
guess
gets
the
more
glue
brittle.
could degrade over time.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Through
You ever walk
freezing
on it
thaw
crunch?
cycles, stuff
Like
like
you,
that?
like
Yeah,
you
possibly.
the especially like OSB,
Possibly.
the strands.
All right.
separate.
Clint's not going to get on. We're at an hour already. There was a lot that we talked about in this episode. A lot of good stuff. I really appreciate you being on and being a good sport about having a really rough possible show. There were you're doing things I think way better than anybody else is doing supplemental stuff. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
again. And maybe we'll have you on again soon. Neck Tattoo is in Florida only for a little while.
This week.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Remington will actually be back on the show. It's been a freaking month and a half since he's been on the show,
Remington will be
next
here
week,
tomorrow.
which I need him on because we've got Steve Badger. So, you know,
I might just
we're
send
not
my kid
but
home
we
and
might,
stay
who
on.
knows?
Hey, Rabowski, you should just smile.
Yeah.
Up in here. Come here. Show
This is
that you
David.
exist.
Rabowski.
There's a real Rabowski here.
Okay. So next week we got Stephen Badger on, which is a big show. I invite you all to be on there. We want to load the thing up with questions. We're going to be talking about appraisal. I'm going to get to the bottom of what is meant by scope as much as I can. There might be other topics that come up. Please join us next week. This show is brought to you by the National Claims Institute. If you guys are interested in getting some education, the National Claims Institute has a whole lot of courses available on everything to deal with insurance claims for contractors, public adjusters, insurance adjusters, engineers, even attorneys. And coming up later this week it's available via Zoom. If you are interested in working hurricane claims, we have hurricane training coming up this Thursday and Friday. So it's the very first time we're putting it on. So it's super cheap in the moment, just like any other class that we put on the first time. It's usually half price. So jump on the first one. You know, work through the hiccups that we're going to have for the first time we put something on, but it's still always worthwhile. Thursday and Friday, you can attend via Zoom, so don't miss out on that.
Be on that one, Matt. Who's teaching that class, Matt?
Are you asking me who's teaching that class, Daniel?
Who all's going to be teaching?
There's a long list of people teaching that class, Daniel.
We have broken it into segments.
There is going to be Frank Dalton, Daniel Rabowski, Neck Tattoo, Mathew Mulholland. We even have guest speakers, John Edwards, Cal Spoon, Sean Hodge. There might be another one.
Remington Huggins.
Remington Huggins. He's a primary instructor. I'm an idiot. Remington. Those 5 plus the 3 guest speakers. That's 8. That's 8 different people that you can learn from. And none of them are trying to sell you anything. These aren't sponsors that are coming in to give you a vendor pre-cap. They're literally going to actually be teaching you something. So that's what we like at NCI, National Claims Institute. Go to nationalclaims.institute to get involved in that. And we hope to see you there. Buy a shirt. No one's bought a shirt yet. Listen to thisbull.com. You guys are killing me with this. Jeez. Everyone wants one. They just don't want to actually want one.
Maybe you should give them out to your guests first.
Oh, bazanga.
I'm here, by the way.
Well done.
Kill it.